Hey, thanks for joining us today on This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. I'm excited about this. Chris Rivera is our guest today, the owner of E-commerce Accountants. And Chris, let's just start here. Obviously, the big picture of what we do, we talk about economic development and growth and what have you. And what you're doing seems to fit here because sounds like it's all about entrepreneurs and helping small businesses succeed. Why don't you tell us what E-commerce Accountants is?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Ken. So e-commerce accounting, we're an accounting firm that specializes in working with e-commerce entrepreneurs specifically. Nowadays with people buying products online, there are entrepreneurs out there that buy a lot of products from China and sell them through online marketplaces like Amazon or Walmart or a lot of different places like that, or through their own website through a tool like Shopify. Our firm specializes in working with those entrepreneurs to assist them with things like tax compliance, bookkeeping, tax planning, tax strategy, you name it. So,
Why is that a need? And obviously, you detected a need back in 2018 when you got started there. Why is that a need for entrepreneurs?
yeah, entrepreneurs in this space, especially, they have small businesses in terms of their headcount. Oftentimes, it's one owner or maybe two to three partners with, maybe 10 to 15 employees or contractors that work for the company. But they can often scale these businesses to seven, eight. We even have a handful of nine-figure sellers. These are small businesses in terms of headcount, but in terms of their earning can be quite large businesses. So they kind of have a big business problem in terms of their, doing their accounting, assessing their performance, understanding their financials, doing tax planning, tax compliance. There's a whole multitude of issues that can come up. So that's why for these entrepreneurs specifically, it's so important.
Yeah, Chris, certainly something we've talked about on our podcast. But in general, I know is that being an entrepreneur, there's something that drives you. There's a product that you have, a service you deliver, and there are things in a business for a small business owner that you love and you're going to do all day long. And then there are some things that have to be done, whether you like doing them or not. And that sounds to me a little bit of where you come in. Is that right?
100%. Yeah, you have to eat your vegetables too. With our clients, whether they're US based entrepreneurs or foreign based entrepreneurs, there's always tax implications in terms of where you're operating, whether that's you have income tax issues, you have sales tax issues. Also, you're running a business, so you have to understand whether or not you're making money, you're losing money. Why are you making money? So these are things that, in my opinion, the most well-rounded entrepreneurs spend the time to educate themselves and surround themselves with the right professionals to make sure that they're able to stay out of trouble, keep performing well, you name it.
If I'm a startup, obviously I'm all, and no matter where I'm at in the continuum, the life of my company, I'm always concerned with the cost of doing business. What are those costs like? And maybe from your perspective, you know the trends. What's the right time for an entrepreneur to say, yeah, I need to outsource that. I need the help that I can get, in this case, from e-commerce accounting.
Yeah, so for a startup, especially if you're not funded, you don't have a lot of budget to invest in a lot of things. You have to often make very tough decisions. Do I hire an accountant or do I hire someone to help me with customer service issues? And there's pros and cons to every decision that you make. So typically what we tell entrepreneurs is in the beginning, right? When you're just starting to bootstrap the business, you can probably do the work yourself on a system like TurboTax. You do your own bookkeeping using
Yeah,
Excel, or even if you can learn QuickBooks and Hustle and
right.
and kind of do some self-education to kind of learn that. But also you can go to local Joe Schmo CPA. Our firm is a full-fledged e-commerce accounting firm that's focused on, bigger entrepreneurs. But for newer entrepreneurs that are just getting started, there's not really as much risk. And as long as you're going to a licensed professional, whether that's a CPA or an enrolled agent, someone who has letters after their name, for accounting, that signifies that they have accounting related education and training, you should be in good hands. And you'll kind of grow either out of that relationship if they don't have the right skill set, or you guys will grow together. So, there's plenty of people that can help you out there that maybe won't break the bank, especially if you're just starting out.
But what are you seeing in terms of, I know you're in the state of Florida also, but what are you seeing in terms of Florida or other parts of the nation? What's the trend in terms of e-commerce?
Yeah, so I would say it's a lot more global than just in the US. We have clients all over the world. Um, In terms of trend, what I see is that Americans are big time consumers. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs that we work with that are focused on shipping into the US, whether that's getting their inventory in the US or shipping products directly to customers in the US if their inventory is not US produced or US based. So I see a big trend with entrepreneurs trying to sell to Americans, whether they're American entrepreneurs or foreign entrepreneurs. I also see a lot of entrepreneurs getting into the direct to consumer space. So, everyone knows when you think of e-commerce, you think of Amazon. If you want to buy whatever, a new gadget, you can go to Amazon and search for your product and find it. But more and more entrepreneurs now are leveraging social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They all have advertising platforms. A lot of entrepreneurs are using those platforms to advertise to customers and sell their products through their website using those ad platforms.
Where do you all come in and maybe give me the scope of services that are available there with e-commerce accounting?
Yeah. So with e-commerce accounting, it's kind of a big three in terms of issues with entrepreneurs. The first two are accounting or bookkeeping related. So revenue recognition is very important. If you are in the business of e-commerce or really any business that you're kind of running a credit card, you have credit card processing fees and credit processing relationships that you have to work through. So, you know, if I have a client that pays me $2,000 today, $2,000 doesn't hit my bank account. That goes through a gateway. That
Right.
gateway gets fed into a payment processor. There's fees, there's refunds, there's chargebacks. So that $2,000 up front doesn't necessarily hit your
Right.
bank account. There's a net
It,
number.
it, it's a
So
little slimmer when it gets to my bank account.
exactly. So accounting for revenue, although it sounds simple enough, it's actually quite complicated, especially if you don't have that skill set. So that's one of the number one way pain points that we see with e-commerce entrepreneurs. And also in that area, the IRS has automated ways to flag entrepreneurs, not just in e-com, but just anyone who processes credit card payments. If you're not doing revenue recognition accounting correctly, it's a pretty easy way to flag you. Also, inventory accounting is highly complicated. If you buy $50,000 of inventory today, it's actually not tax deductible. A lot of people don't know this, but your inventory is not tax deductible until you sell it. So if you buy 50,000 units of inventory, you can't start deducting those units until you start actually selling
No
those
kidding.
units.
Okay.
So it's something that's very confusing and it doesn't, your deductions don't exactly align with your cash flows. So it's a very technical area. And then the last one, and this is probably the number one driver really of where we've been getting clients lately, it's sales tax compliance. So, if you walk into a Macy's or really any store and you buy a product, when you buy a product, let's say their sticker price is $20, you as the customer are not paying $20. You pay $20 plus whatever the sales tax is. That store or that institution takes that money, pays it into the state on your behalf. So sales tax is a tax on your customer, really. The business owner is just the conduit. And this is a good example of what I was saying before. There are small businesses with big business problems. If you have thousands or tens of thousands of customers scattered all over the US or maybe even other countries, there could be sales tax or VAT tax issues that you have to address. So that's definitely a very highly complicated area, especially for e-com entrepreneurs.
So on I guess we would call that back office. On your side, what kind of expertise do you guys have to have? You've got to know about all those different states or communities or countries and what those tax implications are.
Yeah. Training, training, training. We're always training our people. The way we're structured is we have when we hire, we do try to hire specialized people with experience. For example, we're bringing on someone very soon that used to work for KPMG. I know you said you had a family member that works for
Yep.
KPMG, and their background is in income tax compliance for corporations and S corps. So hiring someone who has a specific background helps us to grow and be able to, accommodate to our clients' needs. But we're an accounting firm that's trying to grow along with the trends in the space. So when sales tax really took off, in the 2018, 2019 time period, we really had to hustle and bring in the right experts and people to build a practice around a new and very demanding
Yeah.
need.
I'm curious about this, and I'm not trying to get you in a political space here. I'm not. This is not where we're going here. But how does the change in the top of governance in America? How does that impact? Because obviously, you mentioned a few years ago, tax rates changed, all that kind of thing, and we've got a new administration set to take over in January here.
Yeah, and I don't with the political stuff, it's really black or white on this topic at least. When I was back in 2017, Trump was in office and he put through tax reform. And I think for those people that really understand tax and tax implications for small businesses, big businesses, you name it, Trump tax reform was very, very good for small businesses. It created the QBI deduction, which is a 20% deduction that most small businesses get. And it's a way to optimize for taxes. There's a lot of strategy around that space. So he did a lot of great things around tax reform. That actually is set to expire in 2025. So, how this election is going to impact taxes and tax reform, I do believe that there are things that are set to expire, not just QBI, but things similar to that, that there's great, benefits for small businesses that most likely will be extended. The Republicans took the House, took the Senate, and now, they have a sitting president. So most likely, at the very least, these things will be extended. But some of the other things that were talked about during the campaign was, further decreases to tax rates, especially for those that manufacture products here in the U.S. So there should be a lot of cool stuff that's going to come out that'll help small businesses in terms of taxes.
Chris, I'd love your perspective. What is the impact successful small businesses make on communities and states and the country? Because we hear about that, and somebody who's not plugged in as an entrepreneur or has worked in a really small business even, maybe that gets lost. Why is the success of small business really important?
Yeah. So I think for a couple of reasons. One, they hire. I see our clients. It's really been an amazing journey for us because I started this business back in 2018, and we've grown over time alongside many of our clients. One of our clients just got into Nordstrom. Another client is nationwide in Target. So just to put it in perspective, how big some of these businesses have grown, it's been really amazing. And most of our clients that have grown substantially over the years really focused on hiring, and I think that's great for our country because if you're a U.S. based business, you're hiring U.S. based people. They're going to take their income. They're going to buy things here in the U.S. that help stimulate our economy. So I think that's really great. And obviously, a lot of our clients too have done charitable things over the years, which is really cool to see. Not all of them do it, but I think it's a cherry on top. It's really cool to see that people that becomes very successful can do really nice things as
Yeah.
well.
Just last week, I had the honor of serving as a master of ceremonies for what we call in this area National Philanthropy Day, and looking at individuals and corporations or small businesses who are giving back in the community. And that's a great point, Chris, about what happens when you've got success like that. It can really have that philanthropic impact on communities. Hey, Chris, before we wrap up, what's, I guess, the scale of what you guys do? How many people are involved And to whatever degree you can tell me, but what are like pricing points that I should look for if I'm a small business or if I'm a big enough business, I say, hey, I do need some help like this.
Yeah, so it depends on a couple of different things. We have a few different service offerings, but typically where we start to win clients over is when they're earning about 100K per month in sales consistently. So we start off working with seven-figure sellers, and then typically over time we see that they grow because we kind of catch them on that upward trajectory. So that's really where we start to win with entrepreneurs. In terms of pricing point, we're competitive in the marketplace. As of now, our fees are anywhere between, $2,000 per month all the way up to, our biggest client, we probably charge about $10,000 a month. So it's not, doesn't break the bank that much for a really, really big business.
Are there some compliance concerns or some things that on the small business owner I need to have buttoned up before I can come to you? Or is that where some of the expertise on your side comes in and says, hey, small business owner, we got to do it this way, and this way to be compliant?
Yeah, so I always tell people coming in as clients, if there's a mess, we're happy to clean it up. We've done it plenty of times, more times than I probably like to share. Um, what I do want to emphasize is that if you're a newer entrepreneur that's just bootstrapping a business and, focus on growth, focus on making money, and these things that are compliance related, bookkeeping related, sales tax related, you
Yeah.
name it, they'll work themselves out with growth. As long as you remember somewhere in the back of your mind that it's something that you have to address eventually, work your way up till you have budget to hire an accounting firm that can help you, fulfill these needs. So, it doesn't have to be a niche e-commerce accounting firm to meet your goals, especially in the beginning.
When I talked earlier about, hey, Chris, I wanted to hear you because you know some of the trends. Lots and lots of talk in the last 4 years because of what happened early in 2020 and pandemic and how things went. Uh, are you continuing to see it, this growth, this bounce back from coming out of the pandemic?
So, we've never really seen a dip post-pandemic. During the pandemic days, what we saw was there was a huge influx of new entrepreneurs that came into the space. Um, But what we did see was there was a slight correction in that at that time, a lot of people were at home receiving stimulus checks, buying stuff online.
Yeah.
So there was a whole slew of new entrepreneurs that were introduced to the market. But for a multitude of reasons, over time, the strong prevail, the people that are, completely dedicated, long-term focused, they've stuck around. But there was a lot that came in and a lot that went out. So it was a bit transient during that time. But in terms of market trends, I feel like e-commerce is growing each and every year. And what's amazing is it's really cool to see, especially since we've opened our door to foreign e-commerce entrepreneurs. Now I have clients in South Africa, India, you name it, all over Australia, all over the world,
Mm.
literally. People coming from different backgrounds, different religions, they look different, but they all have a similar ambitious goal. And, it's kind of cool to see people accomplish their goals.
Boy, that World Wide Web sure shrunk the globe, didn't it?
Sure did, yeah.
Yeah, Chris Rivera, I appreciate it. E-commerce accounting, and just some of the experience that you've had in these last several years and sharing that with our listeners and our viewers. Really appreciate it today, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. And for everybody else, hey, thank you so much for watching this episode of This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. Wherever you're getting the podcast, go ahead and like or subscribe or follow, and we'll see you next time here on This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition.